This is a clip from our podcast From the Ground Up. We're on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcasting platforms. I hope you enjoy it. If you like it, then make sure you check out the full episode. The link will be in the description. So just giving people like a bit of an overview of everything you do. So you've got developments on the go, ground up.
Yep.
You've got commercial to residential.
Yep.
Are you doing any kind of just simple buy property and do it up, or you kind of
We haven't done for a while. I wouldn't say we're past it. In some ways, I kind of yearn to go back to simpler projects and, just easy life.
Yeah.
Single lets, a lot of people turn their nose up at them, and, resi flips, a lot of people, everyone's kind of always aspiring to do bigger and better deals.
The big goal is developments for everyone, isn't it?
And again, from an aspiration point of view, I get it. From an income point of view, it can make a lot of sense. But, there's a lot to be said for just doing things there are multiple ways to scale a business. And one of them is just doing volume. You don't need to do bigger deals. You can just do more of the easy stuff. So we're not doing anything easy. I like to give myself a hard time. But it's what works for us. It's the type of deals that we can find in our location. I think that's part of it as well, right? You maybe want to do one thing, but the market tells you to do something else. So you need to kind of pivot and work in the parameters that are given to you. But yeah, no simple projects on the go at the moment. It's not to say we won't go back there. But most of what we're doing is kind of, at least 3 or 4 units in a block.
Yeah. So you've got those kind of developments, conversions, all those sorts of things. You've got an established portfolio that has been, because you said you got into this over a decade ago.
Yeah. And that was, so we initially started off flipping houses. We saw that whilst we were still working as just a way to make additional cash.
Okay, so it's just a capital builder alongside a job.
Yeah, without any real sensible strategy behind it, right? So, a lot of people will flip houses, raise some capital, and then invest that in property. We flipped houses, made some money, and then went and spent it on holidays and had fun. We were in our early 20s, so, we made a bit of cash. We had decent jobs. We were doing this on the side, so everything that we made kind of felt just like a bonus.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a longer term plan at this stage. So what should have been going into a part or going into single lets or building a portfolio, we just had some fun with.
Yeah.
So, we did that for a while. We flipped a couple of houses together. And that was really hands-on. We'd be there evenings and weekends, stripping wallpaper and painting.
Doing it all yourself.
Fitting kitchens and all the stuff you shouldn't do yourself. But, you learn from it. And I think it's a good experience. And then from there, we had a couple of single lets. We accidentally stumbled into the world of HMOs with a flat that I owned, rented out a couple of the spare rooms, and realized that actually, the rent that we got from that was significantly more than renting out to a family or one person. So that kind of opened our eyes to the income side of property. And then we focused exclusively on HMOs for, 5 or 6 years. And just built the portfolio that way. That's where our real sort of base income came from. And then we got to, a comfortable stage where we'd both stepped away from the corporate world. We had the income from property, and then we had a bit of freedom to say, okay, well, what do we do next? Do we want to do projects that, excite us a bit more or a little bit longer before we get a payoff from them? But yeah, HMOs are the core of the income generating portfolio.
I'm particularly interested in the HMO aspect because I know that you've traveled the world off the back of being able to, or at least lived abroad and been able to.
We were supposed to travel the world, but we didn't quite make it.
Okay. But you've been able to do that for a significant amount of time as a result of what you've done in property. What was that like, and how were you able to do that? Because that's really, when people get into property, that actually is a lot of people's dream.
Yeah.
It's let's buy property, let's build a portfolio, create some passive income, and then move abroad, sit on a beach and sip some pina colada and say, job well done.
I mean, there's kind of 3 main categories that we see people aspiring for. There's financial freedom, obviously, right? Can I quit my job and still have an income? There's time freedom. I'm working 60 hours a week for somebody else. I'd like to work 20 hours a week, and, property can do that as well. And then there's location freedom. I hate the UK, or, my family are back in Australia, or whatever. Location freedom was a big one for us. I enjoy work. Time freedom, I didn't really care about. I've been sat on the back of the boat working, perfectly happy because I'm working from a nice location. I enjoy the day-to-day. I enjoy finding deals and working with investors. But the idea of doing that from an office in our home in Stockport it lost its appeal. And we realized, a lot of people think property is very hands-on, and it can be, but it doesn't need to be. A lot of what we were doing was sat at a desk on our laptops, looking at plans, looking at spreadsheets, making decisions, sending emails. And we thought, we don't need to be physically located here. Some aspects of it, sourcing deals and, main sourcing deals mainly is the one that I used to fly back for. You want to be on the ground, and even that you can outsource. But I like to see properties before we made that decision to buy them. But yeah, everything else we were doing remotely despite still being in Stockport. So we wanted to go traveling. We thought we had a one dog at the time. We've now got two. So we needed something that was like kind of dog friendly. So like camper vans, motorhomes, or we came across sailing. Victoria had grown up sailing with her dad, but never considered it much. Anyway, we ended up buying a boat. We sold our house. And we spent 4 years supposed to be sailing around the world, but with COVID, we never really made it past the Med. So
there's worse places to stop.
It's funny because you look at it on a map and you're like, okay, so you've got Spain, France, Italy, and then like over that way, you've got some other places like, oh yeah, Greece, fine, Croatia. Yeah, kind of familiar with that. Montenegro, what the heck's that? But it doesn't seem like that vast an area, but we spent 4 years there, and I could spend another decade sailing around. Like every little inlet and cove is different, every marina is different, and we did a lot of time in the Western Med, sailing around Ibiza and Mallorca, and some of like the more popular touristy spots. And then the last 2 years we were over the east coast of Italy, across to Croatia, which we loved. Croatia is a phenomenal place. And then we spent the last couple of months in Montenegro. And we had a baby last year. So the plan was, let's go and have some fun, and then we'll move back to the UK and have kids. We almost got that right, but we had kids and then moved back to the UK. We had our little daughter on board with us for like the last summer season, and realized that when she started to move, boat life wasn't going to be for us. There's a lot of hazards in a boat environment. And it's tough as well. Like we had a lot of fun, but like running a boat, even just like looking at the weather and planning, that took up a lot of Victoria's time. I was still working on the business. And then, this little baby came along who was like, give me attention. I need fed and looked after. And at that point, we kind of realized, no, it's time to... So we did 4 solid years. We're now back in the UK permanently, but, I've always got one eye on doing something again. Because, again, I'm most of my days sat on my laptop again. So I'm still in Stockport looking out my office window.
Why not be sat on a boat or sat in a villa in another country where it's...
So there are plans bubbling away, but nothing solid. So we're back here for the foreseeable couple of years. Because the business, it did well. We grew it. I think we can grow it quicker back in the UK.
Yes, definitely.
So it's nice to be back here, face to face with the team, and then
accelerate things a little bit.
Yeah. And then, a couple of years from now, we'll decide what next. So, yeah.
So for somebody to be able to give up the job, buy a boat, and travel around the world, or just travel around the Mediterranean, what do they need? Did you have staff? Like, how many properties, if you don't mind sharing, how many properties did you have at that point? How did you manage the process of living in a different country?
Yeah.
But still running a business, running a property portfolio, a HMO portfolio?
So there's probably a couple of different things to consider. Unlike the income side of things, boat life can be expensive. So we went out, we bought a new boat, we bought a catamaran, which is like 2 hulls instead of 1, so that's like twice the price. We spent a lot of time in marinas, and they can be, so you're effectively like, you buy your home, and then you need to pay every night to park your home somewhere as well. So our costs were high. You could do it a heck of a lot cheaper. So I suppose that's the first thing, right? Is like understanding what your living costs need to be. And if you're frugal, if you have got more, if the priority is to go traveling anyway, rather than go traveling in luxury, or, if you're willing to, scrimp and save, you can do it with probably like a couple of, like I said, Victoria left the corporate world, replaced her salary with like 2 HMOs. You don't need a big portfolio to do that. Our living costs were a little bit more expensive. And, so it took, I suppose it was a bit longer before we were comfortable doing that. The biggest thing was team. people, I think a lot of people in the property world, they are trying to do everything themselves, reluctant to outsource, or don't think they can justify it. They don't see it as a business maybe. But from day one almost, we viewed this as a business. We wanted people. We didn't want to be the ones that were answering the phone all the time to tenant queries. So we had a little bit of I suppose from early on, we wanted to make sure that it was run as a business. We had, at the time we left, we had a guy who was running our projects for us, and Jess, who was actually, no, we didn't have Jess. Jess came a year after, because the person who was looking after our portfolio wasn't doing a great job. But we effectively had property management taken care of and project management.
Okay.
And then we kind of oversaw them and looked at deal sourcing and finance applications and that sort of stuff.
So you would find things, you would be on the acquisition side. So you'd find a property.
Yep.
You would get the whole thing tied up and maybe quickly fly back to the UK, sign some documents, get it over the line, get it completed.
Yep.
But then from there, you had someone managing the whole renovation.
Yep.
So you didn't have to be around for that.
Yep.
And then as soon as that was done, keys handed over to management company or management person.
We did that in-house, but yeah, effectively.
So, and then they would manage that, get the tenants in, get them screened, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So with 2 members of staff, plus yourself and Victoria, you were able to...
Exactly. And I mean, you could do, I suppose, our project manager was a self-employed, he was a plumber by trade, but effectively, like, he was our self-employed main contractor. He only worked for us on our projects, but he was self-employed. So we didn't hire him. We didn't have PAYE to deal with or anything like that. Jess, we had in-house. She's a full-time member of staff, but you could have a letting agent that dealt with that. The beauty of us doing it the way that we did was that Jess could do a lot more than just look after the tenants. So she could help out with some of the paperwork stuff, and she effectively became like our operations director.
Yeah.
So she expanded into a bigger role than we hired her for, which, you couldn't phone up your letting agent and say, oh, by the way, do this.
Yeah.
But, she had capacity, so she could take on a broader role. So I think that piece definitely helped. But yeah, you could have a builder that you trusted, or, like I say, main contractor, hire a project manager. You don't need to have full-time employees.
Yeah.
But, you need to trust them. And, I suppose there is that element of hoping that they do what they say they're going to do, because you can't be there every day. But I think that comes in any business, right? As soon as you start getting other people involved, you've got to be willing to let go. You've got to trust them. You've got to feel like you've made the right hiring decision, and then let them do the job that you're paying them to do. So, whether we were in the UK or not, I think to grow, you still need to have that element of trust there, and like I say, let them do the job they're hired for.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, then make sure that you click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss any uploads. It would mean so much to me personally, and also really help us out as a channel.